So here it is, the theme, Family of Rotary. It's a virtual life. And our district conference will be held the first week of May via Zoom, and it'll be in different formats. I'm wondering if anyone can spot from It's a Virtual Life, from a Wonderful Life, some celebrities in this group.
I see Stephanie. I see Holger.
Yeah. So the celebrities will continue to grow. It won't necessarily mean that they can be in attendance. We hope they might. But the strategy for our all club conference will be to execute our awards, have speakers who can transfer from our original March date over to that week, and have it at various times of the day as well. So people might have a better chance to attend. So that's where we're at. You'll see that this year there were new awards to be given, and I'm pretty sure I copied everyone, but I will put the awards in the chat box as a link so you can download. The new ones will be a blessing, that are for those are for clubs who did participate in the blessing boxes across our district, to feed those and support those that were in need. The other one is a Make Your Mark, which is an individual award for presidents, assistant governors, and district leadership who participated in the second half of the year, once a month for 3 months. The last one is coming up on Tuesday, to be recognized for their extra efforts this year, and a year with many demands, that being added to it. And we're successful in completing all those 3 sessions and took some ideas and ran with them. The public image one this year will be a combined, it won't go by the size of the club. Everyone's on a level playing field when it comes to Zoom and hybrid. So we're going to look at innovation and what was done this year. So the all club, the club citation, other awards will also be given at that time. So we hope to see you. You're all well trained now in Zoom. I'm going to steal some of these folks that are helping out today on running the Zoom program to help me out. So I hope to see you all then. Watch for more information, and I'll put those awards in the chat box as we proceed through the day. Thank you all.
Thank you, District Governor Pauline, for being with us this morning and getting us up to date on our All Club Conference. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to General Session 3, where we will be talking about enhanced participant engagement. I am Sandy Olson, and I'm your moderator today from the Forest Acres Rotary Club. I'm AG for Area 1 clubs, and several of you know me from the work that we have done in developing intentional membership growth strategies for your club. And so it's just a delight to be with everyone this morning. At this time, it is my distinct honor to introduce Rotary International Director, Dr. Stephanie Erczyk, who will be speaking to us about planning for success. Stephanie is chair of the Rotary International Executive Committee and has served as a foundation trustee, chair of Rotary Strategic Planning, and the Rotary Foundation Centennial Celebration Committee. She has administered polio vaccine in India and Nigeria, helped build a school in Vietnam, and installed water filters in the Dominican Republic. Stephanie is a major donor and a member of the Bequest Society of the Rotary Foundation, and she has been a Rotarian since 1991 and is a member of the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Stephanie Erczyk. Stephanie?
Thank you so much, Sandy. Family of Rotary, before I begin, I do want to say, Governor Pauline, that conference title, It's a Virtual World, is amazing. That is so funny. You made me laugh. So I hope you get a chance to share that with President Holger as well. So thanks for allowing me to be with you this morning. I want to thank District Governor-elect Paul. He's actually the one that invited me to chat with you. And he said, Stephanie, would you come and chat about our strategic plan? Now, I know it's 9 o'clock on Saturday morning and you're thinking, oh my God, what is he thinking? We want to talk about strategic planning? Well, listen, I promise that what we will talk about today really is meant to help demystify the strategic plan and help you understand as president-elects how you can use it at your club to move our organization forward. So I really want to do 3 things this morning. I want to talk with you a little bit about why we developed it, how we developed it, what it is, and then more specifically, what we do with it at the club level. So let me start with this slide. You know, it says action plan. Why doesn't it say strategic plan? Well, the answer is that when the strategic planning committee first gathered, which was about now 7 years ago, the attempt was to put strategies together that would move us into a thriving future. But when this launched 2 years ago, we are people of action. So we changed the name to Action Plan. And just about everything that you're going to hear me talk about today is available on the RI website. So you don't have to take any notes. We'll show it in the chat. We'll show it at the end of the presentation. So I would prefer that you listen and engage because that's an important part of what we're doing. So as I mentioned, the Strategic Planning Committee was formed, a joint committee was formed 7 years ago. Joint committee, what does that mean? It means that half of the members were appointed by the RI Board of Directors and half were appointed by the Rotary Foundation trustees, because this plan really needs to move both of those groups forward. You know, when we say Rotary, we know what that means. But to the Rotary world, we need to be focused and look as one organization. But in fact, we really are two. The RI side of what we do is the administrative part. And that's where I reside right now as a director. The arm of Rotary that lets us do the magic with grants and peace programs and polio eradication, that's the Rotary Foundation. So both of those groups had input into a strategic planning committee. So what did we do first? Well, the very first thing we did when we got together was look at each other and say, hey, we're not writing a single word of this. And we didn't. First thing we did was look to our constitutional documents. And in those documents, there's a requirement that every 3 years, Rotary reach out to its constituents and ask questions about how we're doing, what should we do differently. So we used that opportunity to create a survey that would address these issues. Now, some of you may have gotten that in your inbox. You would have remembered it because it was the first time a Rotary survey included pictures. We had pictures of different professionals, and we asked the respondents to check off who looks like a Rotarian. Oh my goodness, that exercise in and of itself was intriguing because depending on the culture, the age, of the language, we had all kinds of answers. But so we sent that survey to a lot of people. We sent it to Rotarians. We sent it to non-Rotarians who have just as important issues, to share with us. We sent it to former Rotarians, to alumni, to Rotarians or Rotaractors, to Rilarians, to Interactors, anybody for whom we had contact information got that survey. And then the next thing we did was collect all the information and then decided that because we were working with a consulting partner in New York, we had an opportunity to do focus group study. Now, if you've ever been in a focus group, it's a little bit different from a survey. When you do a survey, it's an independent activity. You sit with pencil and paper, or you sit at the computer, but in a focus group, whether you're online or in person, you're with other people. And as people talk, they may trigger things for you that you may not have remembered. So a focus group is a lot like peeling away the layers of an onion. You really get to the core, to the issue. So we did that around the globe. And then the final thing we did was take a look at in-depth interviewing with our own staff. So that included not only people in Evanston, but people in all of our offices around the globe. So after we had done all of that, we collected all that information. Our job was to look at all of that came in, and we had reached out to over 1 million people, and we got great response rates. We looked at that information. We started to look for phrases and ideas that bubbled to the top, and we put those together to create the Rotary vision statement. But before we sent it out, we tested it around the globe again, because we wanted to make sure it resonated in all the cultures and all the countries of Rotary. So when we did that, the Asian Rotarian said, wait a minute, whoa, this doesn't work. Because our original statement had something about Rotarians attempt the impossible. And they said, absolutely not, that doesn't work. So we changed it. So this slide is showing you that, again, we did all this surveying, we did focus groups, and look at that bottom one. We had input from all of the Rotary zones across the globe. Next slide, please. So to look at numbers, there were actually 74 different focus groups and in-depth interviews, and that shows you how many people participated and how many different countries were represented. Next slide, please. So after we had done that test, this is the vision statement that you may have seen that became the vision statement for Rotary. We see a world where people unite, take action, create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. Now, it's the last 3 words that are so important in my mind, because this is the first time that I can remember in my time as a Rotarian that Rotary recognizes that when we help other people, when we do things to benefit others, it not only helps them and changes their lives, it changes ours. I don't know about you, but I'm really a different person today because of the Rotary service that I've been engaged in all these years. So that's our vision statement, and it's the beacon really that determines, how we move forward and what we need to do. So our second step was to go back to the data, this time to look for what we ended up calling priorities, strategy ideas that were big ideas that the entire Rotary world could grab onto and use for movement. If we go to the next slide, you'll see what those 4 areas are. The 4 priorities, you'll see them. They talk about impact, they talk about reach, they talk about participant engagement, and they talk about our ability to adapt. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about each one. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see our first one, increase our impact. This is a priority that talks about getting better at measuring things. We've never been really good at measurement in Rotary. I have 2 stories here to share with you. One, if you were in Rotary when Ian Risley was president, raise your hand. Okay, remember what he asked us to do? He asked us to plant trees, remember? And what did we do? We all went out and planted trees. Fabulous project. Ian is a great humanitarian. He's one of the trustees that's been behind the support of adding environment to our areas of focus. Fabulous program. We planted the trees, we counted up all those numbers, and we sent it off to RI, and that's where we stopped. But you see, with impact, you have input, output, outcome, and impact. There are steps to take it to that final impact, that final measurement. We stopped a little short. We could have done a little bit more and talked about how did planting all those millions of trees impact soil erosion? Or what did planting that certain number of trees do to CO2 in the atmosphere? We should have taken it a little bit further to talk about the impact. Great project, no doubt about it. Hope we do it again and continue to do it. But we fell short of reaching the impact statement. Now contrast that with what we've done in polio eradication. That's a program from the very get-go. We've been able to make impact statements. Since the beginning, when we got involved in the mid-'80s, we've been able to say that when polio is eradicated, there will be 11 million children every year that don't get this crippling disease, that there will be 85 million US dollars that won't be used on ancillary healthcare costs. We've always been able to make strong impact statements. Those impact statements are what caught the attention of partners and of people who were interested in Rotary. So if we want to attract more donors and more partners and more beneficiaries, we need to get better at measurement. You know, when we started polio in the mid-'80s, we had a handful of partners, but today we have more than 12. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, the World Health Organization, because they paid attention to those impact statements and said, that's definitely something that I want to be involved in because we want to also have an impact on the world. And this priority is also the one that's asking us to look at our club levels, the same thing. Look at what we offer in our programs, and are we doing things that really match the needs in our communities, and are we measuring the impact so that we can then tell our Rotary story? Let's move to the next slide and we'll see priority number 2. This is the one, expanding our reach, that talks about growing our membership and diversifying our membership, getting more people to come into the magic of Rotary and creating new channels to do that. Our Council on Legislation in 2016 opened the door here. That's the council that created e-clubs and satellite clubs and corporate clubs and cause-based clubs and all those other models that are out there, because we wanted to make sure that there were ample opportunities for people to come into Rotary the way that fit them best. You know, I belong to a legacy club and I love it. We have 40 members. We meet on Wednesdays at noon, whether it's in person or on Zoom. I love it. I mean, I love my club, but my club meets Wednesday at noon. And I got to thinking about this community here, Peters Township, Pennsylvania, and how many people are there in this township who can't make a meeting at noon on Wednesday? Maybe they're teachers and they're teaching during that hour, or maybe they're in some other kind of profession with a client, you know, medical people or something else. And I began to wonder, who are we missing? There could be so many other people in this community who could be great Rotarians. So my club is a perfect place. A perfect opportunity for us would be to look for satellite opportunities or to create a second club. And it doesn't cannibalize, it adds. It's kind of like in business, you know, at an intersection, when one gas station pops up and then a convenience store and a fast food, they all benefit because of the increased traffic. So we want to think about how do we find new ways to bring people into Rotary. If you haven't seen the Rotary video called Anytown, it's on Vimeo. You need to look at it. It is the single best Rotary video I have ever seen. And it talks about this very thing, about a town and, you know, how if you limit only having one Rotary club that has a one meeting time, how you limit the opportunity. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. So when we do these things, when we think about expansion and diversifying our membership, we really open up our appeal, and there will be more people who are willing to take a look at the magic of Rotary. The next slide, please. This one is the priority that says we want to enhance participant engagement. And when we talk about participant, that word participant doesn't just mean member, although that's certainly part of it. It means anybody that comes into the influence of Rotary. That could be parents of students of the month. It could be parents of interactors. It could be the beneficiaries in the community of specific grants that you give. It's anybody who comes into that magic of Rotary. So the idea here is that we want our members and our participants to be better engaged. And that means that we want to think about doing things that deliver value. How do we become participant-centered? The best way to do that is to find out why people come into our clubs. You know, people join Rotary for different reasons. Think about Paul Harris. All right, 116 years ago, he was in Chicago. He didn't start Rotary because he wanted to build a toilet block in Chicago. He started Rotary because he was lonely. He was a young guy who didn't know anybody. So he invited 3 other professional guys, and they got together and they rotated, and that's how they got to know one another. The service came later. So some people come to Rotary for fellowship. Some people want service. They want to roll up their sleeves right away and they want to say, you know, what can I do here? I want to make my community better. I want to make the world better. And that's great. Some people look at us and say, wow, look at all those professional people in that club. There's a lot of experience here. I'm young. I'm a young professional. I could probably gain some knowledge by hanging out and doing some work with these people. And it's true. And then yet another group will look and say, yeah, look at all these professional people. What a great place to network. And it is. Rotary is the original networking group. So whatever the reason people have for coming into our clubs, we need to be aware of that. You know, I've noticed that there had been a lot of Rotary material that talked about doing exit interviews. Baloney, that's the wrong time. By that time, they've made up their mind that they're leaving. We need to do entrance interviews. We need to be talking to our members as they're coming into the club to find out, what are your expectations? What do you want? I was on a Zoom call a week before last, and the club I was visiting, they did a great thing. They had a Rotarian of the week, and that person knows ahead of time. And what they do is they're interviewed by another club member. And the questions are pretty basic, but it gives everybody a chance to get to know that person. Why'd you come into Rotary? Who invited you? What attracted you? What's keeping you here? What's your profession? If we looked at your bio, what's one thing we wouldn't know about you? Questions like that. But I thought, what a great thing. And every week they have a different person, sometimes new, sometimes seasoned members, but it's a way for all of their club to get to know members in a way that you may not be able to do in a regular club meeting. So we want to make sure that we listen to what our members are saying. And if they want training, if they want development, if they want a certain kind of activity, we want to listen, because then we're better able to tailor our activities, our program speakers, and our projects to make sure that we are engaging as many of our members as possible. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see the very last priority, increasing our ability to adapt. Oh my God, this is the one, we're in overdrive. Think about it. 11 months ago, the way we did Rotary was absolutely ripped from us. We had no choice but to figure out, how are we going to continue to do Rotary? And by and large, Rotarians around the globe have done that. We figured it out. We're still connecting. It's not ideal. I mean, Zoom is not the same as being face-to-face and, you know, handshakes and hugs and eye contact, but it allows us to reach a wider audience. It's convenient. It's less expensive. My Rotary dues came down this year because we took out the meal fee. And I'm like, wow. So I'm paying about $1 a day to belong to the greatest organization in the world. I think that's fabulous. So, you know, Zoom has some advantages, but what it's doing and the message it's sending is that Rotary has figured out how to connect. And that's what the world is craving. And not only are we connecting, we're continuing to serve. I listened to District Governor Pauline, and she's talking about all these awards for, you know, service. You did this and you did that. That's fabulous. So we have figured out how to serve and how to connect. And that really proves that we know how to adapt. So this priority is reminding us that when we look at our clubs, we want to make sure that our culture is one that allows us to take risks and to do things differently. You know, if you would have said to me 11 months ago, hey, Stephanie, set up a Zoom meeting and then put breakout rooms, I would have said, what in the world are you talking about? But by and large, you know, over these months, I have figured out how to do some of those things. And this priority is also asking us to look at our governance and look at all of our process roles and what we do. You know, some clubs have people that roll over, that go from year to year to year to year in the same job. I'm in my third Rotary Club. In my first club, in the Rotary Club of California, PA, the treasurer had the job for 37 years until he died. Are you kidding me? What's up with that? So we don't want to find ourselves stuck. We want to make sure that we streamline things and make sure that we're getting more diverse perspectives in our decision making. So that's really what this priority talks to us about. So if we go to the next slide, there's an important question. So what does that mean for us as leaders, as Rotary leaders? What do we do with this? What I just described to you was written as a corporate plan. It was written for Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. But if it stays up there, we're not going to survive and thrive as an organization. So our job is to bring these messages to our clubs. If we go to the next slide, when we talk about increasing our impact, one of the easiest ways to do that in your community is to look for other groups who are already doing assessments in the community. Find out what are the issues. I mean, if your club has, continually, supported XYZ, make sure that XYZ is really at the top of the list of groups in your community that are seeking assistance. So make sure that, you do an assessment up front, and then you monitor the project or the work that you're doing, and then you measure it. This is kind of like going on a diet. You're not going to know if it's successful unless at the beginning you jump on the scale, see where you start, and then see where you end up. So that's what this is about. So we want our clubs to get better at focusing their efforts so that you're really working on activities that are impactful in your community. And then when you do that, you have an opportunity to tell that Rotary story and to celebrate success. The next slide is how we challenge our clubs to expand our reach. One of the things that you want to do here is make sure that your club members are understanding that we have a learning center on Rotary, and it has over 400 courses, different courses in all kinds of levels of information. There also are membership resources for your club. There's actually a course there called How to Diversify Your Club. So look at some of those materials, find out who your innovative club advocate is in your district, and talk to that person about what are some opportunities, how can we expand, what are some things that this club can do? Are we a prime candidate to do a satellite club? Is there a corporation in this community that may be interested in a club at its facility? So we want our club members to start thinking about how do we expand this magic of Rotary. The next slide is how do we get all of our participants engaged? And I mentioned to you already one of them, doing entrance interviews is one way. Another way is to think about organizations in your community who share your same values. In my community, we have an organization called Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania and Maryland, and they are very committed to diversity and equity. And because we know that diversity is one of the core values of Rotary, we approached them and said, hey, why don't the two of us work together and have some kind of community? pre-COVID, so we haven't been able to do the ones that we talked about. We've done just one. We sponsored a speaker on a Zoom meeting, but we talked about simple things like events at the community library sponsored by both organizations, dealing with diversity. We talked about hosting international food trucks at our local Tanger outlet mall so that people have an opportunity to experience food from different cultures. So we talked about a lot of different ways that we can build some connections between places in our community and our Rotarians so that they become more engaged. And finally, the next slide talks about how do we challenge our clubs to get better at adapting. And look at that first one, you know, holding brainstorming sessions. And you know, I mentioned we need to look at our club roles and our processes. You know, sometimes I go to clubs and they're inducting a new member, and the new member is from a bank. And then right away they turn and say, okay, you're going to be our treasurer. Wait a minute. That person works with money all day. Maybe they don't want to be the treasurer. Find out what else they may be interested in doing. One of the things that I will suggest to you as incoming presidents that you could do that has such power is to take these 4 priorities as a club meeting, whether you do it in person or online. Divide the club into 4. Give each group one of the priorities and give them 20 minutes or 25 minutes to talk about what does this priority mean for our club? How do we take it? How do we adapt it? What are we going to do with it? When you do that, 2 things happen. First of all, you're going to get some interesting ideas, and the members are going to have some ownership. You know, when I started, you may remember I said that as a strategic planning committee, we decided not to write a single word of this plan. Instead, we went out to the Rotary world. Why did we do that? Because we wanted Rotarians around the world to have ownership. And that's the same thing that exercise will do. It will give your members ownership, even if you never use a single word that a group says. The fact that you gave them an opportunity to be heard and have some input, then they'll feel ownership. You know, we have a saying in the United States, people don't wash rental cars. They don't own them, of course not. So give our members an opportunity to be heard, and that will help you in your planning as a president-elect and as you're in your role as president, and help the person who's coming up behind you to focus all of these ideas and activities so that they make sense for your club in your community. And the final slide is the slide that I promised you would show you where you can find more information. You'll find it at the Rotary website /action plan. There is a strategic planning guide available. There are PowerPoints available. There are handouts, flyers. You don't have to recreate anything. There is a planning course on the Learning Center. And I don't know how many of you have used the Rotary or looked at the Rotary magazine, but every month they call them advertorials. They are full pages that are directly related to one of the strategies and one of the priorities that I talked about. So there's a lot of information out there to help you with this, but the best thing you can do is invest in your members and get ideas from them, because then they have input. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask if Lou will let me know if there are any questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of them, either about strategic planning or about anything, because you've got a director on the line.
Thanks, Stephanie. I have not seen any specific questions for you. There are a couple of downloads that Paul has put in there and Bill Oliver has put in there for upcoming information, but if there's a question, folks, put it in the chat now.
I love it when I do such a good job that nobody has questions.
So the first question is, can we get copies of the slides? And I'm sure Paul and George can make that available to us, right?
Yes, they have it. Absolutely. Happy to share that.
There's a question concerning the focus groups. If you could talk a little bit more about them, like who exactly was in the room for these focus groups?
We had a member of the Strategic Planning Committee. We had a member of the consulting practice, and then we had the people we had identified. And again, when we were looking for participants, it was a wide range of people. We invited Rotarians, we invited non-Rotarians, former Rotarians, Rotaractors, interactors. So a lot of different perspectives of our constituents. And that's who made up the focus group. Focus groups usually ran an hour and a half, about 90 minutes. And again, they were questions thrown out to the group, and then the group discussed them and provided information. And then there was a recorder who took down notes about what was being said.
So while this was taking place in the before times, can you tell us about how many of these focus groups sittings that you personally were involved in?
In focus groups, only one, because the Strategic Planning Committee had 9 members. We have a strategy office in Evanston, and there are, I don't know, 7 or 8 members there. And we were working with Grant Thornton, a consulting firm out of New York. And they, of course, had consultants in all of the different offices around the globe. So we had a lot of people to pick from.
And let's see, there's another one now. Vision statement. The comment is that Rotary's vision statement is the only one that motivated me and encouraged me to take action. And I think that's probably because we can actually remember it, because it's nice and short and very concise. And
it really says what we're all about. That's what I love. It really captures the essence of what being a Rotarian is. Yeah.
And I don't see any more questions, Stephanie. We have about a minute or so. So if anybody has one, just pop it into the chat.
Okay, I appreciate being invited. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my email in the chat. And if anybody thinks of something later that they didn't remember and they want to send me an email, feel free to do that. I'm happy to answer questions. And Paul, thank you for inviting me to share information about the strategic plan.
Thank you, Director Stephanie. You have summed up a lot of pieces and parts that we've been talking